Well, I guess it's time to get started. My name is Thomas Schuler, and I'm the chairman of the Stockbridge Zoning Board of Appeals. I'm going to ask the other members of the board to introduce themselves for the record.
Jim Murray, Yale Hill.
Mark Mills, Cherry Street.
Miles Moffett, Train Hill Road.
And with us also is Patty Andrew, who is not voting. She's a member of our board because she missed the last meeting, but she's an interested spectator.
Yes.
Okay. This is the resumption of a hearing on the appeal by David Rosenthal of 2 Field Road pursuant to a Stockbridge zoning bylaw 7.5 and Mass General Law, Chapter 40A, Sections 11 and 15, in response to a notice of violation dated December 18th, 2023, issued by the Stockbridge Building Commissioner. We held a hearing last week and we just conducted a site inspection of the properties. And at this point, we would like to resume the hearing. I think at this point, I'm going to ask if the appellant petitioner, Mr. Rosenthal, has any comments or observations he wants to share with the board. Mr. Rosenthal?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I appreciate everybody's time. I appreciate the site visits. I apologize for the emotion I've shown over the last 2 weeks. I feel as though the emotion from me in this particular instance is maybe not warranted, but perhaps understandable. When Chairman Schuler suggested or told me that I could come and speak again, I've had about 10 or 15 minutes to think if I wanted to add anything. I sent a video earlier. I've got it here, which is a pretty good depiction of what the property looks like. In July, it was filmed just fortuitously, July 3rd, 2023. Happy to show it. You have it in the record. I'll leave that to you. My thought process in the last 15 or 20 minutes has been that I have lived in Berkshire County since 1986 in one way or another. First time to West Stockbridge, Pixley Hill, lived there and rented for a few years, then bought again. In the Glendale section. Met Martha, moved to Field Road. But my point is that and I think an important point, every winter, including this one, I remember when the leaves came off the trees and I would be driving around wherever, West Stockbridge, Interlaken, Glendale, Pittsfield, anywhere. I would be driving with the leaves off the trees, and I would say to myself, wow, I didn't know there was a house there. Because all of a sudden, in the middle of a Berkshire winter, without any leaves on the trees, there's a house that I didn't even know existed. It happens every year. I'm sure, well, maybe you guys have been here around here longer than me, but I'm sure it happens to you guys too. Where maybe you knew the house was there, but never really noticed it. In any case, I think that anywhere from 6 to 8 months out of the year, Dr. Plakin and Dr. Pacino cannot see my house. And even the brief view that I took from the master bedroom in his home, like, it's the winter time, the leaves are off the trees. If you're looking down at a nice little 30-degree angle, instead of looking out at Monument Mountain or out at the, you know, the skiers on Butternut, yeah, I get it. And I'm all, I think it was last week, I'm all for the rule of law. I understand non-conforming structures. I get it. But I also believe pretty strongly in right versus wrong. I always believe in doing the right thing. And I think that absolute silence on this subject for 4.5 years since the special permit was granted, and then halfway through that 4.5 years coming to me and Martha, when she was still with us, asking to cut down trees on my property to enhance the view towards Monument, was perhaps an opportunity for Dr. Plaken and Dr. Pacino to say to me and Martha, hey, what about the screening? Silence. He will tell you that he knew what was going on in the house. Fine. It's nice to know that he knew what was going on in the house. It was reassuring. But listen, I'm not a lawyer. I don't know if there's a statute of limitations on these things, but silence for 4.5 years, and then coming and saying, hey, how about the screening? I don't want to use any words that I'll regret. I just didn't understand it. Didn't understand where it was coming from after 4.5 years. In 2021, Martha and I spent $13,310 with Dennis Marab at Windy Hill. The birch trees, all the hydrangeas, the grasses and the apple trees were our own. There's a big red maple in the center of the driveway. If you look at the video that I sent, it's a beautiful piece of property. And you can't see Dr. Plaken's house or Dr. Pacino's house, and they can't see my house. And in the winter, in the Berkshires, you see stuff that you didn't think was there before. And I just think that I don't understand it. I think, and that is the main reason for my emotion. Understand the special permit. I understand everything about it, but I also know what's right and what's wrong. And I believe I made my appeal because I think this is wrong. I think it's wrong.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Does any members of the board have any questions of Mr. Rosenthal?
Were you married to Martha in 2019?
Yes, we got married on August 15th, 2016.
Okay,
I met her on August 15th, 2013.
okay. Then,
One day, so I didn't have to remember 2 separate days.
right. As part of the special permit, it seems like you agreed to plant screening, or not screening, appropriate plantings to mitigate the visual impact from, I know that you planted a lot of beautiful plantings, but I did not see in you didn't seem to be able to show us any plantings that were directly behind the addition that was in question. That was the only issue that needed to be mitigated, that one small area. Subsequently, there is a lot of growth there, but why did you agree to that? Those plantings and not proceed with them?
We did proceed with them
don't-
in my mind, because we did mitigate lots of what Dr. Bushido was looking down on. And the fact of the matter is, well, maybe it's not the fact of the matter, but I think when you walk the site, I think it's pretty evident that there is no place on that hill to plant anything else. We planted everywhere it was possible to plant. Everywhere it was possible to plant. There's, you saw the slope, how quickly it goes up.
Right,
There's invasive
right,
plantings in there. In 4 or 8 weeks, you're not gonna be able to get up there.
right. No,
You're not gonna be able to get through it,
I understand that.
okay? So did we put any new plantings there? No, sir, we did not. We planted everywhere
But,
we could plant. No, we planted everywhere we could plant.
right, I guess what I'm asking is, why did you agree to it? That you would mitigate the visual impact, specifically to the new addition, which was in question of the special permit. There's a lot of other things that I agree with you on, but this is the one key issue for me, is agreeing to it and then not doing it.
Well, once again, I maintain that we did do it. We spent $13,300. We planted everywhere we could along our along the property line that we were able to plant. It is impossible, sir. You saw it. You
Right.
climbed up there. It's impossible to plant there.
Right,
It's
Okay.
impossible to plant there.
okay. Yeah.
And perhaps I'm not answering the question, but yes, we did agree to mitigate, the impact of his view. I mean.
No,
what-
well, the impact of the view on the special permitted
Right,
piece. Okay,
understood, and I'm not gonna disagree with you. I'm not gonna disagree with you. I think your point is well taken, but I maintain we complied fully with the spirit of the special permit.
okay.
Was there any discussion at the select board meeting about the point you're raising, that you feel there isn't any place that's appropriate or feasible to plant in? This decision to put the screening, was it something really discussed and analyzed, or was it just let's?
You know what? We live in a small town. If I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna be honest. It's a wink, it's a nod, it's like, yeah, we'll do the planting. And we did. We did the planting. Did we talk about exactly where the planting was gonna go? No, because we had no idea what it was gonna look like and how the new structure was gonna look in relation to the property line. Only that it was 24.2 feet, 24 feet, 2 inches, or whichever. No, we did not talk about specifics. We talked about, Martha, David, will you do plantings? Yes, we will. And we
So when
did.
this was going on, obviously, the structure wasn't there.
Not even close.
The whole
No,
landscape
this was our architect.
was different.
This was our architect and our building committee for the select board with the plans. It was long before any shovels went in the ground, long before any shovels went in the ground. It was long before the original garage was taken down. Which, as it's 12 feet high. It's like, do I think in the wintertime you could see that garage from Meeting House Road? Yeah, I think you probably could.
Okay.
Any other questions, Mark?
No,
Miles?
I guess to further what Mark is asking, when you went before the board and you had rendering, did you have renderings? Anything that showed landscaping that was planned?
No,
Besides the
no.
architectural
Just
drawings?
the architectural drawings. We had an architect from Great Barrington and our builder, John Payron, in Stockbridge.
Mhm.
No. No, it was all about, I guess, are they called setbacks?
Mhm.
It's all about how close we were to the property.
Mhm. So yourself and the select board at the time saying, yeah, well, plantings will be done in the spirit to, to provide screening from 5 Old Meeting House Road, the way it's written here.
Right.
Sounded like it was thought at the time that could be done, I guess.
I don't know what they were thinking. I know I wasn't thinking about whether it could be done.
Whether it could be done or
Okay?
physically done or not.
I do know that when it came time to get it done, we did everything we could. We brought, Windy Hill, Dennis, he knows trees, he knows landscape architecture.
Right,
He knows. And we planted where we could plant.
where you could plant, which was more alongside the driveway, to screen the driveway
Yeah.
from view, like
Yeah.
you said, right?
Yeah,
Right.
but that's
Because
because,
the house,
that's
it has
because
a
everything
steep,
else was naturally screened.
too steep.
You couldn't get back there.
Yeah. Okay. So I think we're all saying the spirit of the written word of the special permit is one thing. And the spirit of what was done and what could be done is perhaps another thing, unfortunately.
I'm not gonna disagree with that.
Okay. That's all I have.
I mean, I guess when I look at this, one of the things I think I'd like to make very clear. And, this is a circumstance, you have to understand how this whole thing was precipitated was as a result of the building inspector responding to a concern or complaint from your neighbor. The determination here, Mr. Rosenthal, was not made by Mr. Plunkett. He has no standing here to make any kind of determination with respect to whether or not this special permit's been adhered to or not. That was a determination, sir, that was actually made by the building inspector who looked at things. So one of the things I think I'm pointing this out because I think it's important to understand that whatever your neighbor thinks or says about a condition might be something that our building commissioner is going to look into and weigh. But at the end of the day, he looked at the language of the special permit, which I think is, basically says there'll be appropriate plannings to mitigate the visual impact from 5 Old Meeting House Road where Dr. Placken lives. Well, I understand the argument and the sense that you're not quite sure what that involves, because until you build this structure, which adds another 12 feet to the existing garage, so it's now 24.5 feet as opposed to 12 feet, you don't know what really it's going to look like. I understand that. And it would seem consistent with that. You didn't undertake any kind of plantings until that actual project was completed. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and that makes complete sense. But what I'm seeing, I guess, is I look and I see the screening, and it looks like you've done a nice job perhaps screening the garage. But it doesn't look like there was really any screening of the actual quote unquote 12-foot offending structure, which is different than what was there. Now, I understand the issues with respect to the topography and the like, but, I have to, I have to look at this language here from the select board. I mean, they're not omniscient. But, I think that the sense is, look, we've got a condition here where there's a 12-foot garage. And now you want to put another 12 feet up there, so it's 24 feet. We've got an abutter who's not happy about that because that will interfere with his vista, which is the way it was before, and it was a pre-existing non-conforming use. So really, it's supposed to stay that way. You get a special permit to alter this pre-existing non-conforming use, so you add another 12 feet, and the select board is saying, okay, we're going to let you do this. It's a pre-existing non-conforming use, but hey, you gotta take care of this whole issue of the visual impact. And to me, the visual impact is really that extra 12 feet, which, with all due respect, isn't really mitigated by the plantings, at least that I observe. Well, it may have done some things to shield the protection from the garage or from the driveway. That doesn't really address the concern presented by the visual impact of the additional 12-foot structure. I mean, that's sort of where I'm coming from.
Am I permitted to ask a question?
Well, you can certainly make comments. I mean,
Where would you envision on that steep hill any sort of plantings? And in addition, would any plantings, 3 to 5 feet, mitigate the view? Would anything change, sir? Would anything change except Dr. Plaken being right and me being wrong?
That's
again,
why we expected you to work with Dr. Plaken and come up with a solution. We're sitting here you're sitting there expecting us to come up with a conclusion. We have, yes.
Why did you wait 4 years?
well, look, at this point, Mr.
That has
Rosenthal,
no relevance.
Mr. Rosenthal, look, it's not going to be helpful for you and Dr. Plotkin to engage. You're better off addressing whatever comments you have to the board, okay?
Why did he wait 4 years?
All right, well, in reading the material that was submitted, Dr. Plaken noted that in the intervening time, we had COVID. Martha got ill. Martha eventually died. He wanted some suitable period of time after her death before causing you any disruption. This is what I have read. I mean, you're asking a question, that's the information that we have available. And
No, I don't remember any sympathy cards.
well, okay, that
That's
may
not really
be,
the
but.
purview of the
but,
board to work
You know,
together.
you don't know what's in his head or Dr. Bacino's head about this when they're looking down there and they're saying, do we approach David or not? I mean, I'm just saying, this is what he told us in his material. So I'm only bringing that up because you raised the question and that's information we've received as an answer.
I'll give you a more stark legal response to that, sir, and that is that the doctrine of municipal estoppel doesn't really apply in this situation. Okay, first of all, it wasn't Dr. Plaken's action. It was the action of our zoning enforcement officer who looked at the site, looked at the special permit and made that interpretation. So it's not his action, okay? And really, and basically, under that doctrine, the town can choose whenever they want to enforce activities or address issues in special permits as to whether or not they conform to the permitted use or not. So it's a little bit of it may not seem like it may seem very relevant to you because of personal distress and emotions and whatever, but as a board, that's not really our purview.
Okay. Mr. Chairman, when you were in the master bedroom, did that view startle you, bother you? I mean,
The issue, sir, is not whether or not the view startled or bothered me. The issue is whether or not, when I look at that view and I see there, I have to say, is the building commissioner correct that under the special permit appropriate plantings to mitigate the visual impact or a condition. Has that condition been met? That's the analysis that I went through. Does anybody have any other questions or comments?
Well, I'll make some comments. I can see why this is upsetting to you. And I understand when you talk about, hey, it's winter, people can see their houses and their neighbors, and that's true. And I think, you know, having taken the tour I took, both the properties, if I didn't know anything about a case behind this, I would have no idea why there was a dispute between the neighbors. Because there's a house on the hill, your house is down there, he's got a beautiful house with a beautiful view, you have a wonderful addition you've put on your house. But there is a background to this. There is a case. And there are two facts that we can't disregard. One is that the Board of Selectmen put this provision on granting you the ability to build that beautiful addition. And secondly, then, that our building inspector looked at the property and in his view, the requirement of the select board had not been met. So those were two facts. Again, that's what we're faced with. It isn't our job to repeal the workings of the select board, to rescind their actions. I think it's unfortunate that in this situation, a provision was put in place before people really knew the lay of the land, before the work had been done, before the landscaping, before the wall, before the property, so you could see where you could put something. I think the decision to say plantings was done before anybody really had a sense of what that little patch of ground behind your house there would look like. But this is what was decided. And as to the July footage and whatnot, Dr. Plakin told me in our discussions walking around the properties that it's not a summertime issue for them, that it really, but there is whatever 5, 6, 7 months, whatever it is of the year where it is visible. And they feel like they got this ruling from the select board to have something done. And you did some wonderful landscaping, plantings, mostly along the driveway, and it looks great. But there have not been significant plantings in the area that's really affected by the construction. And I think that's the issue that Dr. Plakin has had. And as sympathetic as any of us might be to the circumstances here, we are not here to second guess the select board. And so my feeling is that considering the select board made this provision, that our building inspector feels it wasn't met, and that in our inspection of the property, we didn't see an effort to screen the part of the house in question, that you haven't met the standard, even though when we look at it, there are a lot of practical issues around trying to put a screening in there. I've had some trees put in my house. I had a guy come in with a big digger, had to really get something in there to dig, because you have to dig a pretty big hole to get an 8-foot tree in. And you need multiple of these, and the hill is very difficult to work with.
I think it says 3-foot trees that are gonna grow to 5-foot.
Yeah, at a minimum, 3-foot trees that can grow to 5 feet. And that's all that's required under these rules.
And where? Where and how that is gonna actually impact.
Well,
It's not our decision. I could come up with solutions to this whole mess very easily, but we do not have authority.
Tell me.
No, I can't. It's
yeah, that's not our role.
right. It could be very simple. If you two could sit down and just say, okay, I want 8 trees. No, I'll put in 2. I'll put in 3. Okay, 5. Come up, I'll put them here. No. It doesn't take a lot of effort. And we're down to, there's going to be a winner and there's going to be a loser. And this is why I'm pissed off. I'm pissed off at both of you. that you couldn't work it out. In this particular case, I only see it as two losers. There's going to be no winner.
I mean, it's not our province and it's not our purview to fashion a solution to the problem. What our responsibility here is to take a look at the appeal that you made of the determination made by our building inspector that what was done there was not in conformance with the special permit. So it's a yay or nay situation. It's not, well, this is a big hill. You tell me what kind of plantings I can put there, Mr. Chairman. That's not our role. We have no power to fashion a solution, which is why, it's always a good idea, having spent 40 years doing this kind of work where juries make decisions. When you put it in the hands of us, the four of us, you're putting you're asking four people to make a decision for you. And whatever decision we make, there's a winner and there's a loser. And you have no control over that outcome. If you can find a way to resolve these things in a fashion that satisfies the building inspector, because he's our town zoning enforcement officer. So anything hypothetically that you would agree upon would have to pass muster with him. That's what you have to do. Otherwise, we'll make a decision and that's what we're here for. But, it's as frustrating as as frustrated as you might be because we're not giving you any suggested responses. We're just as frustrated.
Can I ask the building commissioner for his ideas?
Well, again,
I'm.
the way that I would handle that would be, and I don't know, unfortunately, he was here and we had him here for an hour, but he has another commitment, would be to say, hey, you get together with Dr. Plakin and you say, hey, these are the options we're thinking about, Matt. What do you think? Does this pass muster? Would this satisfy the special permit? I mean, that would be the way you would do it. Or you and Dr. Plakin reach some tentative agreement and say, well, okay, I'll go along with this, John, but we got to make sure it passes muster with our building zoning enforcement officer. That's the way that would have to play out.
This is not going to play well with the board, with any of you. But I'll just say it. I have no desire nor need to speak to my neighbor.
Okay, well, then.
And I'm sorry, but.
Oh, that's okay. I mean, well, then I guess at this point, we'll make a decision and that's fine.
I already know what your decision is, and I also know what I'm gonna do.
Well,
All right.
Well, at this point, is there any other questions or comments or any items of discussion? Miles?
From anyone else in the room? Right?
Well, do you have any observations, Dr. Placken, or anyone else in the room?
I just want to say that this is lousy. I mean, I very much appreciate that, what the board's doing. But it's really an uncomfortable and painful experience in a small town like this. I just, if it goes David's way, I'll feel like the obvious was missed. And if it goes my way, I'll feel like so awful. I mean, there's been so much that's happened. Martha dying and
Don't mention.
I'm sorry, Mr. Rosenthal, let him finish, please.
It's just, there's a sense of a kind of a bad blood that I just don't understand. I cannot make sense that the public just, work out something in a neighborly way. I have kind of admired David in the past. We are where we are. It seems to me like I'm feeling like it's a painful and difficult thing all the way around.
I just have one. The other thing I'd like to point out is whatever decision we make, it's not going to be the end. Because there's going to have to be a determination to appropriate plantings. And what may be appropriate to David may not be appropriate to Doctor. So you're just dumping it back to the building inspector, and he's going to say what's appropriate. And so there's not going to be a winner and loser tonight. There will be a vote one way or the other, but this is just kicking the can down the road.
Could I just add that I think David had left, but I had proposed in the spirit of, well, what might work? 2 trees here and 2 trees there. And I don't know how to communicate that as something to negotiate about. But look, after the last meeting, I asked for an opportunity to talk this through. Prior to this ever coming to this board, I made overtures. Can we talk about this? So I'm there, I'm ready. I've had, everything that I think is pretty modest. I'm ready to do it anytime.
Well, at this point, it doesn't appear that that's, based at least on what I'm understanding from Mr. Rosenthal, that's going to happen. And I guess at this point, I guess we don't really have much of a choice, but as a board, I think it's time for us to make a determination.
Well, quite honestly, I do feel a certain amount of sympathy that I don't think this is a huge issue about the visual impact. I think there is a lot of undergrowth there that's only seasonal. And, it doesn't have a huge impact. But for me, it gets down to, there was an agreement made with the select board that appropriate plantings to mitigate the visual impact of the neighbor at 5 Old Meeting House Road that was agreed to specifically and has not been done. There's been, visual, it's a beautiful property. Unfortunately, I think the only place that's been missed is that one section. And, I feel that, how is the appeal written?
Well, I'll clarify that if I could.
Okay.
Call the vote.
Just so that we're
Oh.
clear, at this point, I'm going to call for the vote. Is that fine with everybody that we move to
Yes.
vote now?
I thought we were doing that.
Okay, well, that's fine. Just so that we're clear, this is an appeal that's been made and been lodged by Mr. Rosenthal from a zoning enforcement finding by our building commissioner. A vote yes is to uphold the appeal of Mr. Rosenthal. A vote no is to accept the finding of the building commissioner or building zoning enforcement officer. And just so we're clear, the finding was that the condition that existed at Mr. Rosenthal's property did not satisfy the condition of the special permit that was granted. And just so that we're also clear, the burden of on this case falls with the appellant, that is Mr. Rosenthal. And typically we have a board membership of 5 because of a conflict of interest. One of our board members, Catherine Chester, had to recuse herself. So it's a board membership which totals 4. In order to uphold Mr. Rosenthal's position or affirm his appeal, there has to be a 4-0 vote, just so that we're clear, in favor of Mr. Rosenthal for his appeal to be affirmed or upheld. That being said, I think I'm ready to ask the board to reach a vote. Well, why don't we start with you, Mr. Mills?
All right. Before giving my vote, I would just like to say that it's painful to see a dispute between two neighbors, a few trees, two beautiful homes, two beautiful properties. But we do have a ruling by our select board, a decision that their requirements were not met. So in the hopes that when the emotions settle a little bit, you guys might be able to get together and figure something out that isn't all that painful to do, and that you can resolve this. But for the time being, my vote would be to deny the appeal.
Miles?
I'll just parallel what Mark says and how the solution is arrived at, I think is very difficult. I don't know how the special permit can be upheld, frankly, without going on the other person's property to do so. But because there isn't sufficient screening that I would think would be required to be year round, doesn't say that, but that's my interpretation. I would vote to not support the appeal. So what's that? No vote?
That's a no vote.
No vote.
Jim?
I think I expressed myself. No.
And I would also vote to deny Mr. Rosenthal's appeal. Should note, this is an emotional circumstance. It's unfortunate that neighbors are in that situation, but I think that the zoning enforcement officer has clearly found that the conditions of the special permit were not met. That is, that appropriate plannings to mitigate the visual impact from 5 Old Meeting House Road were not met. And it's on that basis that I would vote to deny the appeal of Mr. Rosenthal. I would suggest
Is there an avenue for a further appeal?
you do have an avenue for appeal to the Superior Court.
Is that,
You have an avenue to appeal to our state court in Pittsfield.
great,
And that'd be something you'd probably have to talk to Attorney Egan about.
great.
Okay.
Thank you all for your time.
Well, thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Shame on you.
Okay, well, that was
Well, you're off the hook now.
Yeah.
Adios.
See, Jim.
Okay, we all set? Okay. Good evening. This is Tom Schuler I'm the chairman of the Zoning Board of Appeals of Stockbridge. And we are here for the third round of the appeal advanced by the Adlers from a zoning enforcement order issued by our building commissioner. The meeting was scheduled and we intended to conclude today. You'll recall that we continued this for 1 week because the parties had indicated they were going to attempt to resolve the matter. My understanding from speaking with the attorneys involved that they're close to resolving this and would like, and they've requested an additional continuance in order to see if there's a way they can resolve this dispute. After conferring with the board, we agreed and will grant this continuance. And the continuance will be to the date of March 18th, is that correct? 19th at 7 PM, which is 2 weeks from today. So we will be back here on March 19th at 7 PM to conclude the hearing involving the appeal advanced by the Adlers for 9 Lee Road if the matter has not been resolved. So we may see everyone on March 19th. If the case isn't resolved, then we'll render a decision. If not, we'll report the matter as being resolved at the appropriate time. Okay.
Discussion allowed at this time or no?
Now,